For the moment, the story of the clones is ended for this season, and now we're going to follow Ahsoka after she left the Jedi Order. Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to an all-new Crossin Streams. As always, I am your host, the real Gino Reynolds, and today we're going to be talking about Episode 5 from Season 7 of The Clone Wars, this one entitled Gone with a Trace. We begin the episode, being that we just ended the clone arc, or at least what we're getting so far of the clone arc. We get a recap of what happened to Ahsoka in the final season of the Clone Wars, where she was accused of betraying the Jedi. Of course, we all know she was framed, and she decides to leave the Jedi Order. So we get a quick recap of that. So if you haven't watched the Clone Wars lately, you at least get the idea of where she's at right now. She's left the upper parts of Coruscant to go to the lower parts. They actually mentioned 1313, which was supposed to be that video game that was supposed to be based on the Star Wars universe that didn't get released. I think it was supposed to be a Boba Fett game. Anyway, she has a speeder, and to call it a POS would be an insult to POSs. It's in really bad shape, and it goes haywire on her, and conveniently, she wrecks her speeder at a repair shop owned by a repair person named Trace. And you can tell that Trace and Ahsoka have an instant connection. Ahsoka is from a different world. She doesn't understand this underworld, how things are different. And, you know, because when Trace is saying, well, I need to charge her for this, charge her for that, she's like, they end up deciding, it's like, I don't understand this world, basically. In the conversations they get into, you can definitely tell they're two different people from two different places. But that being said, deep down, you can tell they're both good people, and again, they have an instant connection. During the entire episode, Ahsoka is hiding the fact that she was a Jedi. Anytime she's asked about where you're from or something like that, she's like, I'm from the upper parts of Coruscant. Whenever she has to flash some fighting moves, it's like, where'd you learn to fight like that? She's like, my older brother taught me, just talking about Anakin. But you can tell the theme of this episode is Ahsoka is trying to find her place in this world. She longs to find her place in this world because all she's ever known was being an apprentice to a Jedi and being a Jedi. So being that she just gave that up, she doesn't have a place. And during their conversations, Trace kind of insults the Jedi, basically saying that their motives for the war aren't to stop the war, and she makes Ahsoka question the Jedi's motives, and she's like, Trace says something along the lines of, the Jedi, you hear stories about them, and then when you meet them, they're completely different people. That's not what you imagine. Then we meet Rafa. Rafa is Trace's sister, who seems to be the sister that is going to get you in trouble all the time. We find out that she owes a loan shark money. And this gets Trace beat up. And this is where Ahsoka, first she's told stay out of it. And then she's like, I could use some help. And Ahsoka fights off the loan shark and his goons. And that's where she asked, where'd you learn to fight like that? We then meet Rafa, who, long story short, has made a deal to fix some droids for someone. And this is going to get them the money that they need to pay off the loan shark. But Ahsoka, after seeing the droids and after helping repair them for a little while, realizes she knows this kind of droid and that they were prone to violence. And sure enough, the defective droids go haywire and they don't get a restraining bolt on one of them, and it gets out. and they have to chase it throughout the city, or the below the city, whatever you want to call the area, 1313. After they chase it as long as they can, they finally get it shut off, but this leads to Trace hanging off of a droid that's hanging off of a ledge. Ahsoka then has to finally use her Jedi powers to save Trace, to lift the droid up. Thankfully, everyone's looking at the droid and looking at Trace, and they don't realize that Ahsoka is using her force powers to pull the droid up, except for one little child sees her do it, but that's it. Then we learn that though they're defective, Ahsoka cautions Rafa not to sell these droids, that they're defective, that they could hurt someone. Trace tries to convince her that what if the restraining bolt goes bad and it hurts somebody? And Rafa's like, I'll do the smart thing, don't worry. The smart thing, of course, means selling them for double. She reasons with her sister, saying, look, if we didn't do it, someone else would. We needed the money. I paid off the loan shark. Here's extra money for tools and everything. So we're going to do what we can to better our lives. So that's the way she reasons with her. And Ahsoka decides that she's having dinner with Trace. She decides that it'd be best for her if she left. And Trace is like, I don't understand why. Why are you going so soon? And she goes, well, long story short, and not in so many words, she says her and Rafa would not get along. And you could tell each time they look at each other, they give each other a glance like, yeah, I want to punch you in the face too. So she decides to get out of there. And then Trace leaves dinner and says, look, I'm going to go help you. Let's get your speeder fixed. This makes me wonder, in the future, is Trace going to leave with Ahsoka? Trace is building a ship for her and Rafa to get off of Coruscant, and it makes me wonder if Trace will either leave her sister or convince her sister to go with Ahsoka, and they can, go on whatever adventure Ahsoka is going to go on in the future. That's what makes this episode makes me wonder. I really dug this episode because you had Ahsoka trying to find a place in this world. You had someone getting her to question the motives of the Jedi. So there was a lot going on there, and it was just neat to see her trying to hide being a Jedi, but having to use her powers, even though she isn't a Jedi anymore. So I'm really curious where they're going to go with her story. I'm really curious if she's going to end up with maybe the Bad Batch later or something like that. It's hard to imagine her, getting together with like Anakin and stuff, because I don't think they ever mention, in Rebels or anything, whenever there's that scene there, that they saw each other after she left. So other than he said something along the lines of, you left me, or something like that, when he was trying to goad her into a fight. So, I'm really curious where they're going to go with Ahsoka Story. I'm a really big fan of Ahsoka Tano. I remember when the Clone Wars movie came out, which is like 3 episodes of the Clone Wars show. I remember when that came out, I didn't like her character. I didn't like the Sky Guy and all that stuff. But as her character grew after a few seasons, she really starts to grow on you, and you really enjoy her story. She's kind of, in a way, when you're watching it, that's the character you attach yourself to, because she's the one going through, like, for the most part, going through the journey of becoming a Jedi, and then having the Jedi accuse her of being bad, and then having to leave the Jedi and all that. So you kind of really attach yourself to her story. So I'm glad that we get this story with her in this season. And if the rumors are true, we're going to be getting her in The Mandalorian as well, played by Rosario Dawson. And as you all know, I love me some Rosario Dawson. So I'm excited for the future of the character of Ahsoka. That's going to be all for this edition of Crossin Streams. If you like what you've heard here, please subscribe to the Real Gino YouTube channel, like this video, and you have anything to say about Episode 5 from Season 7 of The Clone Wars, feel free to leave a comment in the section below. Until next time, I am your host, the real Gino Reynolds, and may the Force be with you.